Lucy Bennett crouched beside a cluster of purple moss that grew in strange spiral patterns across the rock face. Her sample kit lay open beside her, already half filled with specimens from New Terra's western wilderness. At 19, she had dreamed of studying alien life since childhood, and now she was actually doing it. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the valley, and she knew she should head back to the settlement soon, but this moss was unlike anything in her database. She pressed her scanner against the growth and frowned at the readings. The cellular structure was completely backwards from what she expected. Fascinating. She reached for her collection tube and heard the sound. It started as a low hum, barely noticeable. Then the air itself seemed to vibrate. Lucy looked up and saw the shimmer first, like heat waves rising from hot pavement, except the air was cool. Reality bent and twisted in a circle above her, and before she could run, something dropped through. The creature was massive, covered in dark green scales that reflected light like oil on water. It moved on 4 legs but stood nearly 8 feet tall at the shoulder. Its head was angular and reptilian, with eyes that burned yellow and a mouthful of teeth designed for tearing. Lucy screamed and stumbled backward, her sample kit clattering across the rocks. The creature lunged faster than anything that size should move. Lucy felt claws grip her shoulders, felt herself being lifted off the ground like she weighed nothing. She kicked and screamed and beat her fists against scales that felt like stone. The creature carried her toward the shimmer in the air, and Lucy realized with cold terror that it was some kind of portal. They passed through, and the world changed. One moment she was in the valley under New Terra's familiar blue sky. The next she was in a metal corridor that stank of chemicals and something else. Something organic and rotten. Artificial lights buzzed overhead. Alien symbols covered the walls. The creature dropped her roughly on the floor, and Lucy scrambled backward until her spine hit a wall. More of them appeared from doorways along the corridor. They walked on 2 legs now, standing upright like humans but hunched forward. They wore harnesses covered in tools and weapons. One of them, slightly larger than the others, leaned down and examined Lucy like she was an interesting insect. Soft skin, it said in a hissing, clicking language that somehow Lucy's translator implant could understand. The implant had been standard issue for all colonists, programmed with thousands of known alien languages. Young female, good condition. The arena will pay well for this one. Wait, Lucy managed to say, her voice shaking. You can't just take people. There are laws. Galactic laws. The large one laughed, a sound like metal scraping on metal. Human laws mean nothing here. You are in Wrath territory now. You are property. They dragged her through corridors and loading bays past cages that held other creatures she had never seen before. Some looked at her with desperate eyes. Others didn't look at all anymore. Lucy tried to remember her training, tried to think logically, but panic kept clawing at her thoughts. This couldn't be happening. Humans had been in space for over 200 years. There were treaties, organizations, protections, but as they shoved her into a transport ship and locked the door, Lucy understood that all those protections meant nothing when you were far from help and worth money to someone who didn't care about laws. The journey took hours, maybe days. Lucy lost track of time in the windowless holding cell. They fed her once something that looked like gray paste and tasted worse. She drank the water because she had no choice. She tried talking to the guard who brought the food, tried reasoning, pleading, offering money her family didn't have. The guard never even looked at her. When the ship finally docked, they pulled Lucy out and marched her through a station unlike anything she had imagined. It was massive, a city in space with levels stretching up and down farther than she could see. Aliens of dozens of species crowded the walkways. Markets sold things Lucy couldn't identify. Screens on every wall showed advertisements in languages that made her translator implant ache, trying to process them all. They brought her to a building that looked expensive, with polished floors and guards at every entrance. Inside, a different alien waited. This one was thin and tall, with blue skin and too many fingers. It looked at Lucy the way someone might examine a used vehicle they were thinking about buying. Undamaged? It asked the Wrath who had brought her. Completely. Fresh catch from a human colony world. The blue alien walked in a circle around Lucy, its many eyes examining her from every angle. Humans are rare in the arena. The crowds enjoy watching them die. Too soft, too slow, too weak, but they scream beautifully. Lucy felt ice form in her stomach. What arena? The dragon trials, the blue alien said with something that might have been a smile. 7 nights, 7 dragons, each one more deadly than the last. No human has ever survived past the 3rd night. Most don't survive the first. You're going to feed me to animals? Lucy heard her voice rising toward hysteria and forced it down. Stay calm, think. There has to be a way out. Not animals, the alien corrected. Dragons. Apex predators from 7 different worlds, the deadliest creatures we have ever captured. They fight because if they don't, we kill their offspring. You fight because if you don't, you die immediately instead of having a chance. They took her to a preparation room and gave her basic clothing. Tough fabric that might protect against cuts, but nothing more. They gave her water and more of the gray paste. A medic checked her over and declared her fit for the trials. Through a window, Lucy could see an enormous dome structure in the distance, and even from here she could hear the roar of a crowd. You go in tomorrow, a guard told her. First night. Try to make it interesting. The crowds paid good money. After they left her alone, Lucy sat on the narrow bed and let herself shake for exactly 1 minute. Then she stopped. Falling apart wouldn't help. She was a xenobiology student. She knew about predators, about behavior, about survival. She wasn't strong, but she was smart. She had to be smarter than whatever they put in that arena with her. Through the window, she watched the dome and made herself a promise. She wasn't going to give these aliens the show they expected. She wasn't going to scream and run and die like they wanted. If they were going to kill her, they would have to work for it. And maybe, just maybe, there was something about these dragons that the arena masters didn't understand. Something Lucy could use. She had 1 night to figure it out. 1 night before she met the first of the 7 deadliest creatures in the galaxy. The doors opened with a hiss of hydraulics that echoed across the vast space. Lucy stepped forward because guards with electric prods behind her gave no other choice. Heat hit her face first, dry and intense like opening an oven. The arena stretched before her, easily 200 meters across, the ground covered in red sand and broken rock formations. Above, a dome of transparent material showed the stars beyond, and covering every meter of that dome were cameras. Thousands of them, recording everything. The crowd hit her next. Not the sight of them, though the stands that ringed the arena were packed with aliens of more species than she could count. It was the sound. Clicking, roaring, whistling, screaming in languages she didn't know and some she did. They were excited. They wanted blood. Her blood. Lucy walked to the center of the arena, her legs shaking but her spine straight. If these creatures wanted her to cower, she would deny them that satisfaction at least. A voice boomed from speakers hidden somewhere in the structure, speaking in a trade language her implant could translate. Ladies, gentlemen, and honored beings of all designations. Tonight we begin a new trial. The human you see before you was captured from a frontier world. Soft. Weak. Fragile. She will face 7 dragons across 7 nights. Each dragon is an apex predator from its homeworld. Each is undefeated in single combat. The human is given no weapons, no armor, no assistance. She survives on her own merit or dies for your entertainment. The crowd roared its approval. Betting numbers flashed on screens around the arena. Lucy could see the odds. They gave her a 3% chance of surviving the first night. 0% of surviving all 7. Tonight, the announcer continued, she faces Crimson, fire breather from the volcanic world of Ashmar. Crimson has killed 47 opponents in this arena. The human will be his 48th. A gate on the far side of the arena ground open with a rumble of metal on stone. For a long moment nothing emerged. Then Lucy saw movement in the darkness beyond. Something massive shifting in the shadows. Red light flickered like coals glowing in a fireplace. Crimson stepped into the arena, and Lucy forgot to breathe. The dragon was enormous, easily 15 feet long from snout to tail, standing 8 feet tall at the shoulder. Its scales were deep red, almost black, and between them Lucy could see a faint glow like magma beneath cooling stone. Horns curved back from its skull. Its eyes were molten gold. Smoke drifted from its nostrils with each breath. When it opened its mouth, Lucy saw the flames dancing at the back of its throat. The crowd went silent. This was the moment they had paid for. The moment when the prey realized there was no escape and panic set in. Lucy stood still and watched the dragon. She didn't run. She didn't scream. She studied it. Crimson's head tilted like the creature was confused by her lack of reaction. It took a step forward, claws scraping against stone. Lucy stepped sideways, maintaining the distance between them. The dragon moved again. Lucy moved in response, circling slowly. She was watching how it moved. The way its weight shifted before each step. The way it drew breath before flames came. The way its eyes tracked her, calculating. This wasn't a mindless beast. This was a thinking creature, assessing her just as she assessed it. Crimson lunged suddenly, covering the distance between them faster than Lucy expected. She dove behind a rock formation as flames washed over where she had stood. The heat was incredible even behind cover. The stone itself began to glow. Lucy ran while the dragon was still breathing fire, putting more obstacles between them. The crowd booed. They wanted to see her burn, not hide. Lucy ignored them and focused on the arena itself. The rock formations weren't natural. They were placed deliberately, creating a maze of partial cover. Between them, the red sand shifted under her feet. She knelt and pressed her hand into it, felt how loose it was. Underneath, she felt something different. Harder, cooler, water. There was water under the arena floor. Of course there was. They had to keep the sand from turning to glass every time Crimson used his fire. They needed cooling systems. Crimson stalked around the rocks, moving methodically now, cutting off her escape routes one by one. Lucy stayed ahead of him, but barely. Her lungs burned. Her legs ached. She couldn't keep this up forever. She needed to think. Crimson was a fire breather from a volcanic world. That meant high temperatures, probably low oxygen compared to human normal. His flames came from somewhere, probably a biological process that created flammable gas, and fire needed oxygen. Fire created heat. Heat plus water made steam. Steam created pressure. Lucy ran toward the center of the arena where the sand was deepest. Crimson followed, sensing victory. The crowd leaned forward. The cameras zoomed in. This was it. The kill. Lucy stopped running and turned to face the dragon. Crimson paused, surprised again. Lucy dropped to her knees and started digging. Her hands tore through the sand frantically, throwing it aside. The crowd muttered in confusion. What was the human doing? Crimson decided he didn't care. He drew breath, his chest expanding, flames building. Lucy dug deeper, faster. Her fingers hit something hard and cool. Metal. A pipe. She pulled at it desperately. Crimson released his flames. A jet of fire that would reduce Lucy to ash in seconds. Lucy threw herself aside at the last instant, and the flames hit the pipe she had exposed. The metal glowed red, then white. The water inside flashed to steam instantly. Pressure built in a microsecond. The pipe exploded. Superheated steam erupted from the ground in a massive plume. Crimson roared and recoiled, his sensitive eyes burning, his thermal vision useless in the sudden heat. The explosion threw sand and rock fragments in all directions. Lucy, who had shielded her eyes and held her breath, scrambled away through the chaos. The crowd went insane. Half were cheering at the spectacle. Half were screaming that she had cheated, that this wasn't how it was supposed to go. Crimson thrashed, temporarily blind, confused, angry. He breathed fire in random directions, but Lucy was already running, using the steam and smoke for cover. She found a crevice between two rock formations and wedged herself inside. It was barely wide enough for her body, but too small for the dragon. The steam cleared slowly. Crimson's vision returned. He searched the arena systematically, sniffing, listening. He found her hiding spot and approached carefully. His golden eyes met hers through the gap in the rocks. For a long moment, neither moved. Lucy stared at the dragon, and the dragon stared back. There was intelligence in those eyes. Not human intelligence, but something. Understanding. Respect, maybe. Crimson could probably get her out eventually. He could burn her or smash the rocks or wait until she died of thirst. But the first rays of artificial dawn were already lighting the arena. The speakers crackled. The first night is complete. The human survives. The crowd's reaction was mixed. Some cheered for the entertainment value. Others howled in anger, their bets lost. Crimson backed away from the crevice, still watching Lucy. Then he turned and walked back to his gate without being called. Guards came for Lucy, pulling her from her hiding spot. She was covered in burns, cuts, and bruises. Her hands were bleeding from digging. But she was alive. They dragged her back to her cell and locked the door. Lucy collapsed on the bed, every muscle screaming. She had survived. 1 night down. 6 to go. But as she drifted toward unconscious sleep, she kept seeing those golden eyes. The way Crimson had looked at her at the end. The way he had walked away without being forced. There was something there. Something important. These dragons weren't just killers. They were prisoners too. And Lucy was going to figure out why. Lucy woke to ice crystals forming on the walls of her cell. Her breath came out in white clouds. The temperature had dropped at least 40 degrees since she had fallen asleep. Through the window, she could see workers adjusting the arena below, transforming the rocky wasteland into something new. Snow was falling inside the dome, collecting in drifts against formations of blue ice. A guard brought her food, the same gray paste as before, but also heavy clothing this time. Thermal suit, gloves, boots. They wanted her to survive long enough to make night too interesting. She ate everything, forcing down the tasteless nutrition and dressed in the warm gear. Her body ached from yesterday's burns and cuts, but the medic had given her something that made the pain bearable. Through the window, Lucy watched them finish the transformation. The arena was now a frozen wasteland, temperature well below freezing, wind machines creating blizzard conditions. This was Frost's territory, the ice dragon. They came for her as artificial evening fell. The crowd was even larger tonight, she noticed, as the guards walked her through the preparation tunnels. Word had spread about the human who survived Crimson. The betting screens showed her odds had improved to 15%. Still terrible, but better than yesterday. The arena doors opened and cold air hit her like a physical blow. Even with the thermal suit, Lucy felt the chill seep into her bones immediately. Snow swirled in the wind, cutting visibility to maybe 20 meters. The ground was slick ice beneath a layer of powder. Rock formations jutted up like frozen teeth. The announcer's voice boomed again. Night 2. The human faces Frost, apex predator from the frozen moon Glacius. Frost is patient. Frost is precise. Frost has never failed to kill. The far gate opened silently. No roar of metal this time, just a soft hiss as the door slid aside. Lucy squinted through the snow but saw nothing. Minutes passed. The crowd murmured. Where was the dragon? Then Lucy noticed her shadow. It was wrong. The lights above were stationary, but her shadow was moving, growing. Something was behind her. She dove forward as ice crystals exploded where she had stood. Lucy rolled and came up running, catching a glimpse of white scales, of blue eyes cold as the void between stars, of frost coating every surface the dragon touched. Frost was smaller than Crimson, sleeker, built for speed and stealth. Its scales were pure white, making it nearly invisible against the snow. When it breathed, the moisture in the air froze solid, creating a mist of ice that fell like shattered glass. Lucy ran for the nearest cover, sliding on the ice, barely maintaining balance. Frost followed, silent, methodical, unhurried. This dragon was a hunter, and it knew the prey couldn't escape forever. Lucy reached a formation of ice and pressed herself against it, breathing hard. She couldn't keep warm if she kept moving like this, but she couldn't stay still either. The thermal suit helped, but it wouldn't hold forever against this cold. Already her fingers were going numb inside the gloves. She needed to think differently. Crimson had been about heat, about energy, about explosive force. Frost was the opposite. Cold was the absence of heat. Frost hunted by sensing thermal signatures. The warmer she was, the easier she was to find. Lucy looked at the ice formation she was hiding behind, and had an idea that might get her killed but was better than freezing slowly. She started digging into the ice itself, using a sharp rock to carve. Her gloves made it clumsy, but she didn't dare take them off. The ice was hard but brittle. She worked as quietly as she could, creating a hollow in the formation. Frost appeared around the edge of the ice, moving like liquid, eyes scanning. Lucy held her breath. The dragon's head swiveled, searching for her heat signature. But Lucy had pressed herself into the ice hollow, surrounded by frozen water on 3 sides. Her thermal suit was designed to keep heat in, which meant it also kept heat from radiating out. Against the ice, in the blizzard wind, her signature was dispersed, confused. Frost moved past her position, hunting elsewhere. Lucy waited until the dragon was far enough away, then climbed out of her hollow and ran in the opposite direction. She found a sheltered spot between 2 ice pillars and did something that seemed insane but might save her life. She started a fire. Her thermal suit had an emergency heating element, designed for extreme cold. It ran on a small power cell and was meant for short-term use only. Lucy activated it and held it against a piece of insulating material, torn from the suit's lining. The material began to smoke, then glow. Fire was difficult in this cold, but not impossible. She fed the tiny flame carefully, adding bits of fabric from her outer layer. The fire grew. Heat radiated out. Lucy moved away from it, circling around to another position. She made 3 more fires in different locations, each one a thermal signature that would look like a human trying to stay warm. Frost noticed. The dragon moved from fire to fire, investigating each one, finding nothing. Lucy watched from her hiding spot, seeing the pattern. Frost was intelligent enough to recognize a trap, but the cold instinct to hunt heat sources was strong. The dragon was getting frustrated, wasting energy checking false signals. Lucy created 2 more fires, then moved toward the center of the arena where the ice was thickest. She found a drift of snow piled against a frozen wall and did something that went against every survival instinct. She buried herself in the snow. The cold was immediate and horrible, but snow was insulation. Air trapped between the crystals held heat. Lucy curled into a ball, conserving warmth, and covered herself completely. She left a small air hole to breathe through and waited. Time stretched. Lucy couldn't see anything, could only hear the muffled sound of wind and her own heartbeat. The cold pressed in from all sides. Her teeth chattered. Her muscles cramped. She wanted to move, to generate heat, but movement would give her away. Something walked past her position. She heard the crunch of ice under massive claws, felt the temperature drop even further as Frost's presence sucked heat from the air. The dragon was close, so close. Lucy held absolutely still, not even breathing. The footsteps paused. Lucy could hear the dragon's breathing now, slow and deep. Then a voice inside her head, not in her ears. "Why do you hide, pray? Death comes for all. Death in the cold is peaceful, gentle." Lucy was so shocked she nearly moved. The dragon could speak. Not with its mouth, but with its mind. She thought her response, not knowing if it would work. Is there peace in slavery? The dragon's presence froze if such a thing was possible for a creature of ice. Long seconds passed. Then Frost moved away, the footsteps receding. Lucy stayed buried, not trusting it. Dawn came slowly. The lights brightened. The announcement crackled. Night 2 is complete. The human survives. Lucy dug herself out of the snowdrift, shaking violently from cold, her lips blue, her fingers unable to feel anything. Guards came for her and she could barely walk. They half-carried her back to her cell. In the medical bay, they treated her for hypothermia. The medic muttered about humans being too fragile for the trials, but Lucy barely heard. She was thinking about that voice in her mind. Frost had spoken to her, had answered her, had called her prey, yes, but had also called slavery by its name. They weren't mindless beasts. They understood what was being done to them. And if they understood, maybe they could be reasoned with. Maybe they didn't want to kill her any more than she wanted to die. Lucy slept fitfully, her dreams full of ice and voices in the dark. When she woke, workers were transforming the arena again. The ice was melting, being replaced by something new. Open plains, metal debris scattered across dirt, storm clouds gathering overhead. Night 3 was coming, and with it the lightning dragon. Lucy had survived 2 nights through cleverness and desperation. But she was running out of tricks, and the dragons were only getting more deadly. She watched the storm clouds build inside the dome and wondered if the dragons were watching her too. Wondering what she would do next. Wondering if she really understood what she had said about slavery, or if it had just been desperate words from dying prey. Lucy pressed her hand against the cold window and made a decision. Tonight she wouldn't just survive. Tonight she would try to communicate. Really communicate. Because if the dragons could think, could speak, could question their captivity, then maybe they didn't have to be enemies. Maybe they could be something else entirely. The swamp appeared overnight, a festering nightmare of toxic pools and rotting vegetation that couldn't possibly be real but somehow was. Lucy stood at the arena entrance, breathing through a filter mask they had given her, and stared at the transformation. Green water bubbled with gases that made the air shimmer. Twisted trees rose from the muck, their bark covered in something that moved and dripped. The smell, even through the filter, was overwhelming. This was night 4. The betting screens gave her a 30% chance of survival now, which seemed generous given what she was about to face. The crowd had grown again, and this time Lucy noticed something different. Some of the aliens in the stands were protesting, small groups holding signs in various languages, calling for the trials to end. Her survival had made her famous, apparently, and fame meant attention. The announcer's voice had lost some of its enthusiasm. Tonight the human faces Venom, apex predator from the toxic swamps of Mire. Venom is cruel. Venom enjoys pain. The human's luck ends here. The gate opened and Venom slithered out like a nightmare made flesh. This dragon was different from the others, built long and low to the ground with 6 legs and a serpentine body that stretched nearly 20 feet. Its scales were mottled green and yellow, and they glistened with moisture that Lucy knew instinctively was toxic. Twin fangs curved from its upper jaw, dripping acid that sizzled when it hit the ground. Its eyes were multifaceted like an insect's, reflecting light in 1,000 tiny fragments. Lucy had spent the last day preparing for this. The guards had given her basic protective gear, just enough to keep the swamp from killing her immediately. She had also managed to steal a few things from the medical bay. Nothing obvious, just supplies that might seem like trash, a saline solution packet, a handful of antacid tablets, some bandage material. Small things, but she had a plan. Venom circled her, taking its time, enjoying the hunt. This dragon was a sadist. Lucy could see it in the way it moved, in how it deliberately spat acid near her feet, close enough to make her jump but not to hit. Playing with its food, Lucy backed toward one of the twisted trees, keeping her eyes on Venom. The dragon followed, its many eyes tracking every movement. When it got close enough, it spoke, and its voice was like poison honey, sweet and deadly. "You survived fire and ice, little human, but you won't survive me. I will take you apart slowly. The crowd loves it when I take my time." Lucy climbed onto a low branch of the tree, trying to get above the toxic pools. Venom laughed, a hissing sound that made her skin crawl. "There is no escape up there. I can wait. I can climb. I can flood that tree with acid until it dissolves beneath you." Lucy reached into her pocket and pulled out the crushed antacid tablets, mixed with the saline solution. She had made a paste, weak and simple, but it was the best she could do. "I know what they did to you," she said, spreading the paste on her hands and exposed skin. It was alkaline, a basic solution that might neutralize acid. Might. Venom paused. "You know nothing, Prey. They take your eggs," Lucy said. "All of you." "All 7 dragons. They took your children and they use them to control you." The swamp went silent. Even the bubbling pool seemed to still. Venom's entire body tensed, every muscle coiling tight. "How do you know this?" Lucy pointed at the dragon's underbelly, where the scales were different, scarred in a pattern that was too regular to be from combat. "Those are extraction scars. I studied xenobiology. I know what medical procedures look like on reptilian species. And I saw the pattern on Crimson too, just for a moment when he reared up, and on Frost beneath the wings." Venom moved faster than thought. One moment it was 10 feet away. The next it had Lucy pinned against the tree trunk, acid dripping from its fangs onto her shoulder. The paste sizzled, neutralizing most of the acid but not all. Lucy screamed as pain burned through her. "How do you know?" Venom demanded again, its voice raw with something that might have been grief or rage or both. "Because I'm a prisoner too," Lucy gasped out. "Because I've been watching. Because they made a mistake keeping us all in the same place. They thought we couldn't communicate. They were wrong." Venom held her there for a long moment. Lucy could feel the dragon trembling, could see something in its multifaceted eyes that looked like tears. Then Venom released her and backed away. "They took them 5 cycles ago," Venom said, its voice quieter now. 37 eggs. My entire clutch. They said if I fight in the arena, if I kill who they tell me to kill, they will let the hatchlings live. If I refuse, they crush 1 egg every day until I comply." Lucy slid down the tree trunk, her shoulder burning but functional. "The others too?" "All of us. Crimson's eggs are being raised as weapons. Frost's as guard beasts. Storm's in breeding programs. We fight because we have no choice. We kill because we must. And we hate every moment of it." "The young ones," Lucy said. "Where are they kept?" "I don't know." "None of us know. That's the point. We can't rescue them if we don't know where they are." Lucy looked up at the cameras ringing the arena, at the thousands of eyes watching from the stands. "But someone knows. These people, they have records, facilities, transportation logs. The information exists. What good does that do?" Venom asked bitterly. "We are watched constantly, collared, controlled. Even if we knew where they were kept, we couldn't reach them." "You can't," Lucy agreed. "But I'm not collared. I'm not controlled the same way. I'm just supposed to die here." Venom's eyes focused on her with new intensity. "What are you suggesting, human?" I'm suggesting that maybe I don't die tonight. Maybe you make it look good for the cameras, but I survive. And tomorrow night I survive again, and the night after that. And while I'm surviving, I'm also watching, learning, finding patterns. And then what? You are one small human. What can you do against an entire facility? Lucy thought about New Terra, about her family, about the friends she had left behind. She thought about humanity's history, about humans who had stood against impossible odds and somehow won, not through strength but through stubbornness and refusal to quit. I can be stubborn, Lucy said, and I can make them wish they had just let me die quietly on night one. Venom studied her for a long moment. Then the dragon moved, lunging forward with fangs bared. Lucy dove aside, rolling through the muck, the cameras capturing every moment. Venom's acid sprayed where she had been, and Lucy scrambled behind a rock formation. They fought, or appeared to fight, for the rest of the night. Venom was a better actor than Lucy expected, making it look dangerous while never quite landing a killing blow. Lucy played her part too, running and hiding, screaming when appropriate, using the neutralizing paste when Venom's acid got too close. When dawn came and the announcer declared her survival, the crowd's reaction was different than before, more cheering than booing. The protests in the stands had grown larger. Back in her cell, Lucy was treated for acid burns and exhaustion. The medic asked her how she kept surviving. Lucy just smiled and said she was lucky. But luck had nothing to do with it anymore. That night, Lucy watched through her window as something remarkable happened. Under cover of darkness, she saw 5 shapes moving in the arena below. 5 dragons meeting in secret, Crimson Frost, Storm, and now Venom, along with 2 others she hadn't faced yet. Shadow and Quake, she guessed. They stood together, communicating in ways she couldn't hear from this distance, and Lucy realized the truth that would change everything. The dragons weren't enemies. They had never been enemies. They were a family, torn apart and forced to be monsters, and now, because of a desperate human and some stolen antacid tablets, they were remembering what it meant to hope. 3 nights left, 3 more chances, and now for the first time Lucy wasn't fighting alone. Night 5 brought darkness to the arena, so complete that Lucy couldn't see her own hands when she held them in front of her face. They had given her a light stick, weak and flickering, that barely pushed back the shadows. Above, the dome had been covered completely, blocking all outside light. This was Shadow's territory, and the very air seemed to hold its breath. Lucy stood in the center of the arena, turning slowly, trying to see anything in the oppressive dark. The crowd was quieter tonight, leaning forward, straining to see. The cameras switched to infrared and low-light modes, broadcasting the hunt to millions of viewers across dozens of worlds. Lucy's light stick made her a beacon, a target, but without it she would be completely blind. The announcer's voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Night 5. The human faces Shadow, predator from the eternal darkness of a tidally locked world. Shadow cannot be seen. Shadow cannot be heard. Shadow kills in silence. No gate opened that Lucy could hear. One moment the arena felt empty. The next she knew with absolute certainty that she was not alone. The hairs on the back of her neck stood up. Her light stick flickered and went out completely. Lucy froze, controlling her breathing, listening with everything she had. Nothing. No footsteps. No breathing. No sound at all except the distant murmur of the crowd. She clicked the light stick desperately, trying to get it working again. It sparked once, twice, then died completely. A voice spoke from directly behind her, so close she felt the breath on her neck. "Don't turn around." Lucy obeyed, every muscle locked tight. The voice continued, deep and rasping like stone grinding on stone. "You spoke to Venom. Now they watch us more carefully. But they cannot see in true darkness, and they cannot hear what I whisper." "Shadow?" Lucy breathed. "Yes. Listen carefully, human. We have little time. The others told me what you said about finding our young, but you cannot do this alone, and we cannot help you without being caught. So I offer you something else." "What?" "Knowledge. The arena has weaknesses. The masters believe we are too controlled to exploit them and you too weak. They are wrong about both. I have mapped every shadow, every blind spot, every maintenance tunnel in this facility. I know where the cameras cannot see and where the guards do not patrol." Lucy's mind raced. "You're going to help me escape?" "Not escape, revolution. One human running means nothing. They would recapture you or kill you, and our young would die as punishment. But if all of us move together, if we strike at the right moment, we can tear this place down and find our children before the masters can harm them. That's impossible. There are hundreds of guards, weapons, security systems. Yes, Shadow agreed, and Lucy could hear something like amusement in the voice. Which is why we need help from outside. Your people are coming, Lucy Bennett. A human fleet. They will arrive in 3 days, demanding your return. The masters will refuse, and there will be a standoff. That is when we move, Lucy's heart hammered. How do you know my people are coming? Because I listen. I am Shadow. I move through this station in places no one watches. I hear things. The masters are worried. They have activated defense systems, moved assets. Your species makes them nervous. But even with a human fleet, they won't attack the station. Too many civilians. It would be a massacre. Exactly. Which is why we attack from inside while they threaten from outside. The masters will be focused on the fleet. Their guards will be positioned at docking bays and weapon stations. The arena will be secondary. That is our moment. Lucy turned around slowly, trying to see Shadow in the darkness. She saw nothing, not even a silhouette. You've been planning this. Since the moment you made Venom question. Since Frost spoke to you. Since Crimson looked at you with respect instead of hunger. We have been prisoners for years, Lucy Bennett. You gave us something we had forgotten. Hope. And hope is more dangerous than any weapon. The other 2 dragons, Lucy said. I haven't met them yet. Quake and Void. You will meet them these next 2 nights. Quake is the eldest of us, the wisest. Void is the most powerful, born in the vacuum of space itself. When you face them, remember that we are all acting for the cameras now. Make it look real. Make them believe we are still trying to kill you, but know that we are planning something the masters cannot imagine. Light flickered above. The dome was beginning to brighten with artificial dawn. Shadow's voice came one last time, already receding into nothingness. Survive tonight, Lucy Bennett. Survive tomorrow. And on the 7th night when you face Void, be ready for everything to change. The lights came up fully and Lucy was alone in the arena. The crowd erupted in confusion. Where was the attack? Where was the hunt? The betting screens flashed error messages. The announcer stammered through an explanation that made no sense. Guards rushed into the arena surrounding Lucy, checking her for injuries. They found none. They searched for Shadow and found nothing. The dragon had vanished completely, as if it had never been there at all. Back in her cell, Lucy was interrogated. What had happened? What had the dragon done? Why was she unharmed? Lucy played confused and terrified, saying she never even saw the dragon, that she had just stood in the dark waiting to die and nothing happened. They didn't believe her but couldn't prove otherwise. The next day, night 6, the arena transformed again. The ground became unstable, shifting and cracking. Massive stone pillars rose from the floor, creating a maze of obstacles. Earthquake machines built into the structure began their work, making the entire arena tremble. Quake entered slowly, and Lucy understood why it was called that. The dragon was enormous, twice the size of Crimson, covered in scales that looked like layered stone. Each step it took made the ground shake. Its eyes were ancient, filled with intelligence and sadness. When it spoke, the voice seemed to come from the earth itself. Little one, you have done well. But this night will be harder than the others. I must make it look real, and I am not gentle by nature. I understand, Lucy said, bracing herself. What followed was the most terrifying night yet. Quake pursued her relentlessly, smashing through pillars, creating fissures in the ground that nearly swallowed her. Lucy ran and climbed and hid, using every trick she had learned. The dragon's power was overwhelming, its attacks devastating, but Lucy noticed something the crowd didn't. Every near miss was calculated. Every falling stone landed just to the side. Quake was performing, showing its strength while keeping Lucy alive. During one close moment, when Lucy was pinned under a fallen pillar and Quake loomed over her, the dragon spoke too quietly for the cameras. Tomorrow night, Void. When the chaos starts, stay close to us. We will protect you. Then Quake roared loud enough to shake the dome and smashed the pillar to pieces, sending Lucy tumbling away. The crowd went wild. Dawn came. Lucy had survived again. 6 nights down. The odd screens gave her a 60% chance of surviving the final night, which would have been unthinkable a week ago. The protest in the stands had grown massive. Half the crowd was demanding her release. The other half wanted to see the finale. In her cell, Lucy could barely move. Every muscle screamed. Her body was covered in bruises and cuts, but her mind was sharp, planning, preparing. Tomorrow night was void. Tomorrow night, everything would change. Through her window, she saw the human fleet arrive. 7 warships hanging in space just outside weapon range. She saw the station's defense systems activate, saw guards being repositioned, saw the masters scrambling. Shadow had been right. Help was coming, and in less than 24 hours, Lucy and 7 of the deadliest creatures in the galaxy were going to show these slavers what happened when you pushed the wrong species too far. The arena had been transformed one final time into something that shouldn't exist in nature. The floor was transparent, showing the void of space below. Stars glittered in the infinite dark. The dome above had been retracted completely, held back only by a containment field that shimmered like oil on water. The temperature had dropped to near freezing. Thin atmosphere, barely breathable, made every breath a struggle. Lucy stood in the center of the transparent floor, wearing a full environment suit this time. Without it, she would be dead in minutes. The crowd was larger than it had ever been, packed into every available space. Aliens from 100 worlds, all here to see if the impossible human would survive the 7th night. The betting screens showed 50-50 odds. The universe was holding its breath. Outside the station, the human fleet waited. 7 warships and their commander, Admiral Rebecca Cole, had been broadcasting demands for 3 days. Return the human. Face sanctions. Face consequences. The station masters had refused every demand, claiming legal protection under neutral territory laws. The standoff had made news across the galaxy. The announcer's voice was almost reverent. 7 nights. 6 dragons faced. All survived. Tonight, the final trial. The human face is void, born in the space between stars, eater of radiation, the most powerful predator ever captured. If she survives until dawn, she wins her freedom. If she fails, she becomes legend. No gate opened this time. Void came from above, descending from the infinite dark beyond the containment field. Lucy's first thought was that it wasn't a dragon at all. It looked like space itself had taken shape, scales of deepest black that seemed to absorb light, with veins of light running through them like distant galaxies. Its wings were vast, translucent, catching starlight. Its eyes were white holes burning with impossible intensity. Void landed on the transparent floor with impossible grace, and Lucy felt power radiating from it like heat from a star. This creature was different from all the others. More ancient, more dangerous, more aware. Lucy Bennett, Void said, and its voice was the sound of solar wind, of cosmic radiation, of the void between worlds. Are you ready? Yes, Lucy said, and meant it. Void moved, not attacking, but circling, and Lucy saw it was positioning itself between her and the cameras. When it spoke again, its voice was quieter. In 60 seconds, Shadow will cut the main power. The containment field will drop for 3 seconds. Enough time. Crimson will break through the eastern wall. Quake will collapse the western tunnels, blocking reinforcements. Storm, Frost, and Venom will secure the path to the docking bay. You and I will go through the breach. Through the breach? Lucy's heart hammered. Into space? I will protect you. Your suit will hold. Trust. The word hung between them. Trust. Lucy had survived 7 nights by trusting these creatures, these prisoners, these unlikely allies. She nodded. Void reared back and roared, a sound that made the transparent floor crack beneath them. To the crowd, it looked like the beginning of the final hunt. To Lucy, it was the signal. The lights went out not just in the arena but across the entire station. Emergency systems kicked in after 2 seconds, but those 2 seconds were enough. The containment field flickered and dropped. Atmosphere began to vent into space. Alarm screamed. The crowd panicked, scrambling for exits. Crimson emerged from his holding cell, melting through locks that weren't rated for his heat. His flames cut through the eastern wall of the arena like it was paper. Quake smashed upward through the floor below, bringing down a section of access tunnel. Storm appeared in a crackle of lightning, stunning guards before they could raise weapons. Void grabbed Lucy in claws that were surprisingly gentle and launched upward through the gap in the containment field. They burst into open space, and Lucy saw the station from outside for the first time. It was massive, a city in orbit, and it was tearing itself apart. The cold of space was immediate and total, but Void's body radiated something, some kind of field that kept Lucy from freezing instantly. Through her suit's visor, she saw the other dragons following. Crimson's fire pushed him forward like a rocket. Frost created platforms of ice to leap from. Storm rode lightning between the station's hull sections. Shadow was invisible even in the void. Quake moved slower, but with unstoppable momentum. Venom used some kind of acid propulsion that Lucy didn't understand. The human fleet reacted immediately. Admiral Cole's flagship, the Defiant, launched shuttles toward them. The station's defense systems fired, but the dragons scattered, moving too fast and too erratically to target. Void twisted through space with Lucy held close, dodging plasma bolts that could have vaporized them both. A station security ship moved to intercept. Crimson hit it head-on, his flames overloading its shields in seconds. Storm struck it with lightning, and the ship went dead, drifting. They kept moving. The docking bay was chaos. Ships were trying to launch to escape. Guards fired wildly. Void set Lucy down behind cover and spoke in her mind. The facility, where they keep the young. It is on the station's third level, Section 47. The Masters are trying to evacuate them now. If we don't reach them, they will scatter our children across the galaxy. Lucy looked at the confusion, at the guards, at the impossible distance they needed to cover. Then she looked at the Defiant's shuttles getting closer. She activated her suit's emergency beacon and spoke into the radio. This is Lucy Bennett. Human fleet, if you can hear me, I need fire support on Station Level 3, Section 47. There are hostages there. Children, they're being evacuated. For a moment, nothing. Then Admiral Cole's voice, sharp and clear. Copy that, Lucy. Directing assault shuttles to your position. Don't do anything stupid. Too late for that, Lucy said and ran toward the docking bay entrance. The dragons followed. They moved through the station like a force of nature, unstoppable, driven by desperation and hope. Frost froze blast doors open. Quake smashed through barricades. Shadow eliminated guards before they could raise alarms. Venom's acid ate through locks. Storm fried security systems. Crimson's flames cleared paths. They reached Level 3 to find human Marines already engaging station security. Admiral Cole had sent her best, and they fought with precision and fury. When they saw Lucy and the dragons, there was a moment of confusion. Weapons tracking, decisions being made in heartbeats. Lucy stepped forward, hands raised. They're with me. We're here for the hostages. A Marine sergeant, older than Lucy's grandfather, looked at her, looked at 7 of the most dangerous creatures he had ever seen, and made a choice. Section 47 is that way. Let's move. They found the holding facility behind reinforced doors that Quake tore open like tissue paper. Inside, in containment units designed for eggs and juvenile creatures, were hundreds of young dragons. Some were just eggs. Others had hatched recently. All were terrified, calling out in voices too young to be words. Lucy saw Crimson reach his containment unit and press against the transparent material, flames dying down to nothing, his eyes locked on the eggs inside. Frost touched the frozen unit holding her offspring, ice spreading from her claws in fractals of desperate hope. Venom keened, a sound of anguish and relief. Get them out, Lucy ordered. All of them. Marines and dragons worked together, smashing locks, carrying eggs, guiding hatchlings. The station's masters tried to intervene, but they were too late and too outmatched. Human ships docked at every available port. Galactic news crews who had been covering the standoff broadcast everything live. The galaxy watched as Lucy Bennett, small and human and impossibly brave, stood between 7 apex predators and their children, while a slaver station burned around them. They watched her coordinate evacuation. They watched her refuse to leave until every egg, every hatchling, every young creature was safely on a human ship. The station masters were captured trying to escape. The Wrath slavers fought and lost. Security forces surrendered when they realized they were fighting for a lost cause. 6 hours after it began, it was over. The dragons and their offspring were aboard human vessels. Lucy sat in the Defiant's medical bay, being treated for radiation exposure, hypothermia, and exhaustion. Admiral Cole stood beside her bed. You caused an interstellar incident, the Admiral said. The Galactic Council is demanding explanations. Half want you prosecuted. The other half want you given a medal. Lucy smiled weakly. What do you want? I want to know how a 19-year-old biology student convinced 7 of the deadliest creatures in known space to trust her. I didn't convince them, Lucy said. I just saw them. Really saw them. not as monsters or weapons or entertainment, as people, as parents, as prisoners who deserved freedom. Cole nodded slowly. The dragons have requested asylum in human space. All 7 of them and their offspring. They say they owe you a life debt. Tell them they don't owe me anything. Tell them they're free. But when Lucy was well enough to leave medical, she found Crimson waiting outside, his young hatchling perched on his back. The dragon bowed his massive head. You gave us back our children, Lucy Bennett. You gave us back ourselves. Humanity will never lack for guardians while we live. Over the next year, things changed. The trials were banned in 40 systems. The station was dismantled. The galaxy learned that humans, despite being soft and weak and small, could be the most dangerous species of all when you threatened something they considered wrong. Lucy returned to New Terra eventually, but she was different. She became ambassador to the Dragon Homeworlds Alliance, a new federation of the 7 species. She helped broker peace treaties. She taught young dragons about xenobiology. She showed the galaxy that strength came in forms that couldn't be measured in claws or fire or size. And on clear nights, when she looked up at the stars, she would sometimes see shapes flying past. 7 dragons and their growing families keeping watch over human space, keeping their promise. Crimson's hatchling, now grown, would sometimes land near her home. It would ask her to tell the story again, the story of how a small human beat 7 deadliest dragons, and every time Lucy would smile and give the same answer. I didn't beat them. I freed them, and they freed me. That's how you win, not by being the strongest, but by being brave enough to see past fear to friendship. The young dragon would nod, understanding, and take flight again, and Lucy would watch it go, grateful for the nightmare that had become legend, for the trial that had become triumph, for the moment she had looked at monsters and seen people. Humanity had entered the galaxy quietly, cautiously, unsure of their place. The dragons made sure everyone knew. The humans who could turn 7 apex predators into loyal friends were not to be underestimated. Ever.